Okay, good day everyone. This is your coach, attorney Lyndon Maceren. You're also moderator and instructor for this course. This time around, we'll discuss contracts. We begin with what to expect. So what to expect in this subject. First, we'll discuss the general provisions of contracts, its principal characteristics, the kinds of contracts, the stages of contracts. That'll be discussed in this video today. We will only discuss part 1. So we have divided this subject into 3 parts. Part 2 will be the discussion of essential requisites of contract, which are consent, object, and cause. Then included in part 2 are the different kinds of form of contracts and interpretation of contracts. The last part would be the defective contracts, which are rescissible, voidable, unenforceable, and void contracts. For today, we'll discuss part 1. We begin with the definition of contracts. In Article 1305 of the Civil Code, contract is defined as the meeting of minds between two persons whereby one binds himself with respect to the other to give something or to render some service. So here it's very clear that there are two parties in the contracts at least, and there is a giving of a thing, which is of course a real obligation, or to render some service, which is of course personal obligation. That's what you have learned in the topic of obligation. I'll give later examples of contracts. Now, there are other definitions which I'd like to emphasize, and these are as follows: real right, usufruct, gratuitous, ratification, assignment. Now, what is real right? This is a right attached to a thing, such as ownership, usufruct, which is number 3, including the accessory contracts, which are pledge or mortgage. So this right is enforceable against the whole world. So if you have this right, any person you can invoke this right to any person. Now there's another right which is called personal right. Personal right is only enforceable against certain persons. Another definition, the usufruct. What is usufruct? Usufruct is the right to use a property owned by another by virtue of a valid agreement. So there is an agreement between, or a contract between the owner and that person who's given the right to use the property. So that is usufruct. Another term which we will often encounter in this topic is gratuitous, which is the giving or doing of an act or a thing free of charge. So without any fee, without any payment, it is given. So example of this is donation. Well, if a person donates a thing, he expects not to be paid in return. Ratification is also important. This is the adoption or confirmation by one of an act performed by another, whether beneficial to him or not. So if somebody sells your property and you do not act, or you do not react violently, or you don't exert your right, so you are legally ratifying. So your act is ratification of that person's act in selling your property, even without authority. So, okay. Assignment or assign. This is the act of making a legal transfer of a right, property, or liability to another. So if I have a property and I will assign it to you, so therefore I am legally transferring my right to this property to you. Or it could be a right, or it could be a liability. So if I have a debt, I owe someone and I'm going to pass it to you, so the term is assignment. Okay? So let's go back to contracts. It's a meeting of minds. So meeting of minds is the giving of consent. So if you consent to another, so you are entering into a contract. And if you are binding yourself to give something, so there is already a contract. Or to render a service. So what are examples of contracts? So here I have divided the contracts into either principal or accessory, or nominate or innominate. So these are the nominate contracts I have written here. So what are nominate? Nominates are contracts which have names designated by law. So there are specific names assigned to them. You know? So those contracts without specific names are called innominate. So here, innominate. So what are the different kinds or examples of contracts? So principal contracts, meaning they can stand in it, they can stand alone or stand by itself without the need of any other contract. While accessory contracts cannot stand on its own. It needs a principal contract. Yeah? So here are the kinds of principal contracts: contract of sale, and the accessories or the accessories are warranties. You know? It could be warranty for defective product, or warranty for uh, ejectment or something. Like there's a warranty called like ejectment. You know? If somebody ejects you, so if you're selling a property, you warrant that the buyer will not be ejected from that property. So there are warranties in a contract of sale. Now there is another contract which is a sell, but this is to sell. A contract to sell is an agency, meaning you are assigning or you are giving authority to a person in order to sell your property. So that person which you have you're giving authority is the agent. So that's a contract equivalent to a contract of agency. So let's go back here. Another example of a principal contract is a contract of loan. In Latin, loan is mutuum. You know? So the accessory contracts of loan are mortgage or antichrisis or pledge. It should be here. So mortgage, these are security. Mortgage, anti-crisis or pledge, these are accessory contracts to secure the loan. No? Let's say the bank does not know you. I do not know you, whether you will pay or whether you have the capacity. I mean, your residence is, your state of residency or the number of years that you have reside in the place is not so, the number of years is not so long. So the bank would require you to submit a security like property. So in submitting the property, you are entering into a contract of mortgage. You know? So then, but the principle is you are applying for a loan. Okay. Anti-crisis, on the other hand, is the same as mortgage. This involves a real property. But here, the payment of interest is compensated by the fruits of the property. So if the property, let's say, has a parcel of land has 500 mango trees, so the fruits of that mango trees will cover the interest of your loan. So that is contract of anti-crisis. On the other hand, pledge is also a security of the loan, but here it involves personal properties. Yeah? So you know what is a personal property? Those which are movable. You can move from one place to another, like a vehicle, like a car, a jewelry, motorcycle, and so on and so forth. No? Well, here, mortgage and anti-crisis, the properties involved here are real properties or immovable properties like land, building, and land developments. No? Other examples of contracts are contract of lease or rent or contract of tenancy. So these are usufruct. So the contract of lease, you are given the right to use the property. Contract of tenancy, the person is given the right to plant in the property with the arrangement that the landowner will also will be given a share after harvesting the crops which are planted by the tenant. It's a contract of tenancy. Here, a comodatum is also this is also a usufruct, the right to use. But here, this one is gratuitous, without any payment, or it's free of charge. So let's say, for example, I will let you use my car for 1 year without any payment or rent. That is comodatum, for as long as you will be the one paying the gasoline or fuel. No? That's comodatum, gratuitous contract. Here also,